So, how's your fantasy football season going? What's that you say? Your starting running back has already pulled both hamstrings, and your sleeper pick is still sleeping? Well, it's not too late to save your season and win huge cash prizes at DraftKings.com. DraftKings is the destination for one-week fantasy football. That means no season-long commitments to busts and bench warmers. Never again will injuries have you combing the waiver wire at 2 a.m. Every week is a brand new season at DraftKings. Just pick your contest, draft your team, and follow the action live. Renew old rivalries with friends and play them every week. Or try 50-50 contests, where the top half of all entries win cash. Even if your current fantasy team is circling the drain, you can still win huge cash prizes at DraftKings. Don't wait. Start your new season at DraftKings.com now. Use code TAKE and play free with your first deposit. That's code TAKE to play free for your share of over $100,000 in total prizes this weekend. Only at DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See site for details.
From Bristol, Connecticut, it's First Take, Decision 16. Stephen A. Smith versus Max Kellerman. America decides. Your moderator for today is Molly Karam.
Good morning, and welcome to First Take, Decision 16. I'm your debate moderator, Molly Karam, here to guide us all through this historic election day. America has a huge decision on its hands right now. It's time to find out who is the true king of sports debate. Let's welcome the candidates to the stage. Representing New York City, he's a graduate of Winston-Salem State University. He spent over 20 years in sports journalism and is a critically acclaimed actor. It's Stephen A. Smith. And the newest member of the First Take family, also repping New York, a graduate of Columbia University. He's been on ESPN since the 90s and is the voice of boxing. It's Max Kellerman. Welcome, candidates. You each have 1 minute to give your opening statements. Let's start with Stephen A. Smith.
Thank you, Molly. Max. America, welcome to the show. Obviously, you have an incredibly important decision to make this morning, actually. Who's the best? It's really not a discussion, is it? On one hand, we have an individual that doesn't relate to the American people, doesn't feel your pain, has no history whatsoever, no track record that we can speak of identifying with you. Whereas with me, you've had me here for so many years. You know that I am real, you know that I am honest, and more importantly, you know that I feel what you feel, that I relate to you to the degree that you need me to. When you go to the election poll, understand that that's what you're looking for, that that's what you need. You don't need somebody that can't relate to you, your trials and tribulations. You need someone with a proven track record of doing exactly that. I ask you to take that into consideration, into strong consideration, when you cast your vote today. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the debate.
Thank you, Stephen A. Max, your turn.
First, let me say, Molly, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And moderating this debate. Stephen A., my worthy opponent. We all know Stephen A. Smith. He has a tremendous social media following, which he will have to rely on heavily today. He is a populist. There is no doubt about it. He will try to appeal to your passion. He will attempt to filibuster oftentimes, although today we are on a clock, so that is taken away from him. Yes, in fact, even his opening remarks, he is appealing to your emotions. Who feels your pain? No, I'm not claiming to feel your pain, American sports fan. I'm claiming to present the most straightforward and rational debate possible. And when you consider what we are saying here today, I hope that you listen very carefully, follow your head, and yes, even your heart. And I have every confidence that you will elect me the king of sports debate.
Gentlemen, thank you. Here's how this election will be decided. You at home will be casting your vote on Twitter. Simply tweet hashtag Stephen A. or hashtag Kellerman during the show. You can vote as many times as you'd like throughout the program to help your favorite candidate take home the coveted title of King of Sports Debate. Now for a little guidance on how to win, let's toss it over to our special guest, the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
First I'd like to say good morning. Second thing I want to say is this. Here's some tips on winning a debate. Well, I can't really tell you what to do because America's wishy-washy. You know, it's like Brad and Angelina Jolie's marriage. It's really wishy-washy. But if you really want to stay in there, I suggest nobody call anyone a nasty woman. Don't do that. Unless it's in the bedroom and she likes that sort of thing. But if not, then you can't do it. So all I got to say is I'm looking forward to it. Gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble all day long. Thank you. Let's go.
Mr. President, thank you. We appreciate the relationship advice also that he shared with the American people.
Definitely that. Definitely. We have no problem with that relationship with advice whatsoever.
No comment.
Okay. Gentlemen, let's get to our first issue at hand. After last night's 31-25 win over the Bills, all everyone was talking about was a controversial play involving Richard Sherman running into the kicker. The NFL's head of officiating, Dean Blandino, first said on Twitter that Sherman should have been flagged for unnecessary roughness when he ran into Dan Carpenter. But Sherman was only flagged for being offsides. Stephen A., you'll start here. Was this a dirty play?
I don't think it was a dirty play at all. Certainly, he should have been tagged for a roughing penalty. There's no doubt about that because he ended up touching the kicker excessively so. There's no doubt about that. The flip side to it is whether or not it was a dirty play. You have to measure intent. And as far as I'm concerned, looking at the play, I didn't find it to be dirty. He definitely jumped off sides. He was going to be penalized. At the same time, he wanted to make sure that the man did not kick the field goal. He wanted to make sure that if he was going to be penalized, that indeed you would have to redo the kick. So he did what was necessary to make sure that he did everything he could to get to the kicker so the ball wouldn't be kicked and the field goal wouldn't count against him. That's what he did, and I understand that. Obviously, you also have to take into consideration the history of Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is one of the elite players in the game of football. He's an ultra competitor. He's going to go after it, but he isn't known for playing dirty. He isn't known for engaging in a level of excessive behavior that really goes beyond the pale. That's not his reputation. And when you're going to penalize somebody, that's one thing. But when you're going to classify them and characterize them as dirty, then that's character assassination. And as far as I'm concerned, you have to have a level of credence to that, some kind of resume, some kind of history that's indicative of you engaging in foul play. There's nothing that we've seen from Richard Sherman in that regard. There's nothing that we've seen from him that should bring his character into question. So ultimately, it comes down to you simply judging the play. Was the play roughing the kicker? Absolutely, positively so. But there are plenty of people throughout NFL history that have been tagged with roughing the kicker, and they still weren't labeled a dirty player. To go beyond the pale and to call Richard Sherman a dirty player, or to call the play dirty per se.
Stephen A., thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Max?
Yes, my opponent started in right away with a typical technique. The question was not, and is not, is Richard Sherman a dirty player? Because non-dirty players at times have been involved in a dirty play. The question is, was this play dirty? Now, as Stephen A. Smith points out, in fact, the league comes out, Blandino comes out and says, yep, they missed that call. Everyone knows they missed the call. Everyone knows it was roughing the kicker. It was unnecessary roughness. That is beyond dispute. The question is, was it a dirty play? Not is Sherman a dirty play, or was it a dirty play? Now, I take no pleasure, American people, in saying what I am about to say, because I'm a Richard Sherman fan and don't think he's a dirty player. But that play was dirty. As a matter of fact, when I asked our producer today, hey, can I call for the video, which I'm about to do, they said, oh, of the dirty play? I said, yes. Like, everyone knows it was the dirty play. Look at this. Take a look at this. What do you see here? No? Are we not going to show it? Remember when I said, Stephanie, we were going to show the play? We're not going to show it. Okay. You see, and now it's coming. Very good. Here we are with the play.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes, I try. I try my best. Yeah, that wasn't the angle we were looking for. Maybe we'll get it over here.
You wanted to go get you some cookies, too?
Here it is. Please, sir, this is not your time. He went right for the legs. You see, it's okay to go for the ball, but the trajectory of Richard Sherman's jump clearly wasn't at the ball. It was at the kicker's legs. So is it dirty? Can you tell intention here? I think you can. Secondly, that's a really dangerous dirty play. That's the way that guy makes a living. Again, I'm a big Richard Sherman fan. Don't find him to be a dirty player who generally imperils the health unfairly of the opponent. But in this case, I have to say what my eyes see. There's Richard Sherman diving into a guy's leg. By the way, after the play was over.
Well, the most poignant point of that argument, Mr. Kellerman, was the fact that you said you have to go by what your eyes can see, because usually we should trust what those eyes of yours see. That's number one. Number two, I would defer not just to your eyes, but I'll go a step further. NFL experts who have been all pros and arguably future Hall of Famers, actually undisputably future Hall of Famers. I recall on Monday Night Football, which is aired by this great network, ESPN, two NFL aficionados. That would happen to be Randy Moss, who's a future Hall of Famer, and it would happen to be Charles Woodson, both of whom said it was not a dirty play. Should he have been tagged with a roughing the kicker penalty? Yes. But was it a dirty play? No. It was a football play. So since they played the game at a very elite level, plus they were in attendance on the field, watching the play, also having the benefit of replay in the throes of action and seeing all the things that they've seen, combined with the fact that they're pretty established at their profession, is hesitant as I am to go against what those eyes of yours see, I would defer to experts who have played this game and would know a thing or two about a dirty play. None of them said, including Matt Hasselbeck and others, none of them said it was a dirty play. They said it was a roughing the kicker penalty. That's all.
Well, that means you have a losing argument. You see, I'm not interested in, and we're not being asked here about Randy Moss's opinion or anyone else's opinion for that matter. We're being asked about our opinion. And as far as this video evidence is concerned, that's all we really need to say.
Oh, really? So you don't care about what experts have to say?
That's your time, and now this is...
We're just asking.
Now.
Stephen A., please give him his time.
Yes, please give him my time. Please. Yeah. Today of all days. We're on a clock now. I know it's difficult. It's different than it normally is. Now,
gentlemen, let's stick to the issues, please.
Now,
how about that?
We're being asked about our opinion. We have incontrovertible video evidence. The only question is, could he be diving for the ball at that time? Doesn't matter what anyone else says about it. Was he diving for the ball? That's why I wanted the video played again. If you look at the trajectory of Richard Sherman's dive, and when he rolled, it was aimed at the legs. The ball couldn't have been there where he was diving. And since that's all we have to go by, because we know, in fact, it was roughing the kicker, we have to assume
if it were incontrovertible, I wouldn't be contradicting you, nor would the experts.
The time is up.
That's all I'm saying.
Sir, yes, please.
Please, listen to the president.
We have to.
Yes.
Oh, you have to give each other the, so you got to do that. So,
there's more issues the American people need to hear about. So let's move on now, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. The loss drops the Bills to 4-5. They've now lost 3 straight games. Rex Ryan is now 12-13 as Bills head coach. Is it time for Rex Ryan to be impeached? Max Kellerman.
No, it's not. Now, ideally, we'd like to think all of our head coaches should be winning coaches. But that's just not possible. This is a zero-sum game, football and sports for that matter. For every win that one team has, there has to be loss for another. And since we don't want a league of just 8-8 teams, some teams are going to be below, some teams are going to be above 500. But I think it's safe to say that if you're a 500-ish coach, you're about average. You can argue, well, you shouldn't want an average coach. You should want something better. But I don't know that being average is impeachable, particularly not in the AFC East, where, by the way, Rex Ryan has spent his entire coaching career in the same division with the greatest coach who ever lived. Now, think about this for a second. He's 4-5 on the year, yes, and they've played the Patriots twice. 1-1, which is better than most do. He's 58-63 in his coaching career. 58-63. Now think about that. In the same division as Belichick, he's 4-12 in those 16 games. He's played 8 seasons. He's coached 8 seasons against Belichick. 4-12. Where he's simply 7-9 in those games. So replace Belichick with just a great coach, but not the greatest coach ever. If Rex Ryan could be 3 games better, still below 500, he's a 500 coach. He has been unfairly compared to Belichick because anyone who is compared to Bill Belichick, and if you coach the Jets and the Bills, I mean, what's his next stop going to be, Miami? That's what's going to happen. You will come up on the short end. Les Miles was fired for not being Nick Saban. It would be a mistake to impeach Rex Ryan now at this early date when the Bills look pretty good, actually. They don't look so bad, simply because he's not Bill Belichick, the greatest coach who ever lived.
Well, Let me say I emphatically disagree with your opinion. I think it's ill-informed. I think it's emotional, and I think it has no place in American politics as far as I'm concerned. Let me be very, very clear. America is the greatest country in the world. We are synonymous with greatness. I want somebody to tell me one thing that Rex Ryan is synonymous with that happens to be great. There's a 58-63 record. There is a record spanning since 2010 where he has not had one winning season since 2010. That means over the last 6 years, the best record he has been able to produce is an 8-8 season. That is the epitome of mediocrity. And the fact that you could sit up here asking to be a representative of the American people when you are spewing mediocrity is an absolute disgrace. Let me go a step further. Rex Ryan showed up on Monday Night Football last night. Now, the team played well. Obviously, there were certain things that didn't go their way. There were breaks that they didn't get. But isn't that the case with Rex Ryan? And correct me if I'm wrong, America. If I'm wrong, please feel free to let me know. Last time I checked, this is a free country. Rex Ryan didn't have to take the job in the AFC East for the New York Jets. He did it. He didn't have to take the job for the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. He did it. He knew Bill Belichick was there because Bill Belichick was there before he ever arrived. But he still took the job. You took the job, and not only did you take the job, you bloviated about what you were going to do and how you weren't here to kiss the ring of Bill Belichick. And all it appears you have done since you have arrived on the job is kiss the ring. If not his feet, you're kissing something other than victories. I can tell you that much. And so when I look at it from that perspective, what I would say to you, Max Kellerman, if you want to be a representative of the American people, perhaps it would behoove you to speak about greatness, to speak about and remind this nation of this great country of ours, what we're supposed to represent, what we're supposed to epitomize, what we're supposed to stand for. And when you ask yourself that question, do you really want to associate yourself as being a supporter of Rex Ryan? Nobody is saying that Rex Ryan should be gone this second. We're saying he should be impeached. Impeachment is a process which should end at the end of this season. And at the end of this season, a new Bills coach should be in Buffalo because in all probability, Rex Ryan will be home watching the playoffs for a seventh consecutive year.
As usual, I said, listen very closely to the arguments. Listen to the rhetoric. Because my opponent has once again learned that neat trick. You see, you started out by saying that I was being that was an emotional argument I made, when in fact I was very straightforward and logical and rational. I pointed to his record. I pointed how playing against Bill Belichick has made his record worse. If you substitute Bill Belichick with just a great coach instead of the greatest ever, maybe Rex Ryan's 500. I established that 500 in this league is not so bad. And I even brought up the fact that this is really not about calls to your emotion about how great every town and every team is supposed to be, because not every team can be above 500. For every team above 500, there's got to be one below. That's the way it goes. That's what a zero-sum game is. So it is, in fact, you, Stephen A. Smith, who are trying to appeal to people's emotions, which you frequently do in your populist calls. And I would say that this is not about representing America. This is about representing the Buffalo Bills. If, according to you, only Belichick should represent America. It's the only coach in the country.
Allotted time. Please stick to it.
Last time I checked, the city of Buffalo is a part of America. So when I talk about speaking about America, I'm talking about the American citizens everywhere. In this particular case, a specific locale would happen to be Buffalo, a team that has been mired in mediocrity for many, many years, a team in a city that was starving for recognition, the right kind of recognition. I repeat, Rex Ryan took the job knowing Bill Belichick was in the conference. My opponent here comes across as an individual that's an apologist for anybody who has to go up against Bill Belichick in the AFC East. If you're going to take the job and you want to adopt the mentality that my opponent appears to want you to adopt, then why don't you just sit up there and say, excuse me, judge me for everything but when I have to go up against Bill Belichick. Don't expect me to beat him. I have no chance against him. I'm a scrub compared to him. I have to bow at the altar of Bill Belichick.
And under those coaches, not you and me.
Excuse me. I'll let you speak.
The point is, talking about how you felt about me.
The point is, it's okay. Let him interrupt. It's not going to help him. In the end, what it comes down to is, again, Bill Belichick has owned the AFC East. Unfortunately, Rex Ryan has allowed it.
Okay, gentlemen, we had allowed for the other candidate. We're going to the
Yes. Great start, candidates. We want to check in on who's winning the debate so far, according to your Twitter votes. 51% are voting for Stephen A. It's a tight race. It's a tight race, Jay. What do you think of this debate so far?
What I think about this debate so far, I say, first of all, this guy right here, listen, Stephen A. Smith with the pocket square, love it. You, no pocket square. I don't know what you're doing with your life. What you need to do is you need to go yourself, get yourself a better suit, you know. Second of all, sir, this man is talking about America as a whole and the Buffalo Bills. Matter of fact, when we're talking about America, Buffalo Bills, putting them all together. Sir, he's representing everything. What I think you're doing, sir, is you're isolating. Now, one thing I didn't like you saying was you said that the Patriots coach was the best coach of all time. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
That's no.
Yes.
But thank you for trying. Wow.
Yes.
If I may comment.
Thank you, please.
Best suit on here tonight.
If I may comment, with all due respect, I think that poll is a joke. I'm annihilating my opponent. Everyone knows that. It's unfortunate that the American people are divided. This is indicative of the divided nation that we're living in right now. We need to do better. We need to get better, but they need to recognize facts.
Not the forum for your editorializing.
A lot on the line in this election. There's an egomaniacal, narcissistic threat to our way of life.
Gentlemen, please.
And then there's me.
Gentlemen, please stick to the issues at hand. Jay.
Yes, please. Are you comparing this black man to somebody else who was narcissistic?
I was referring to this man.
No. Are you referring to him as a particular candidate, though? Are you saying, sir, that you are the other candidate? Is that what you're saying?
You may infer what you wish.
Welcome back to First Take Decision 16, where we are allowing you, the American people, to select the winner of the debate. All you have to do is vote. Head over to Twitter, tweet hashtag Stephen A or hashtag Kellerman. Your vote counts. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant, his decision to leave the Oklahoma City Thunder and create a super team with Steph Curry and the Warriors caused many to think the team would dominate the league because of the amount of talent on his team. Recent history tells us that super teams don't always result in finals wins. The Boston Celtics and Miami Heat super teams won a combined 3-3 in the NBA Finals. Stephen A., are super teams a threat to the NBA?
I think it is. I definitely think it is. Because anytime you talk about a lack of parity, a lopsided system, and you're going over 82 grueling games of a regular season, interest may potentially dissipate. Now, the NBA has an advantage because the average age of its audience is 37 years of age as opposed to 47 for NFL or 54 for Major League Baseball. And plus, it's a global iconic brand, so it has an advantage. But what I would ask people to do is harken back to the days of when Magic and Bird were playing against one another in Boston and LA, respectively. They had teams, and they were great teams. Then along came Michael Jordan, the greatest player, as far as I'm concerned, that I've ever seen. But as much as we laud and praise Michael Jordan, we haven't really appreciated the damage that he did because he was so great as an individual commodity that usurped team. So what happened is that all of a sudden, when the Chicago Bulls, who also were culprits in all of this, didn't want to pay him his money until they had to once his contract expired, he was getting his money from Nike. So when you had Nike funneling that money to Michael Jordan, what transpired is that it elevated his profile as an individual. Of course, his individual greatness assisted in that greatly. But Nike was able to market that, along with the NBA, into a global, iconic, individual brand. Well, what happened in the aftermath of all of that, what happened is that we started focusing on individuals, and individuals started focusing even more on individuals, and they were about getting paid, and the priority towards winning dissipated to some degree because even though Michael Jordan clearly won, other dudes who were on the come up who were getting exponential amount of dollars, they weren't necessarily winning, but they were still getting paid. So as a result, the money keeps flowing in because of the television contracts with the networks and beyond. Everybody's getting paid. And as a result, the priority towards winning doesn't appear to be what it once was. I've had numerous Hall of Famers throughout history say to me, back in the day, we had to win in order to get that shine. You don't have to do that anymore. So even though guys go on the court and they play hard and they go at it hard, the level of dedication and the commitment to excellence and winning isn't always necessarily there in the off season. That's how the game has hurt. That's why super teams aren't that great of a thing to me.
That's a nice story, and some of it's even true. The problem is you contradict yourself 15 times while you're talking about it. First of all, are super teams good for the sport? Well, we've seen super teams in recent years, and what happened? Basketball, the NBA, is exporting its product around the world better than anyone else. Basketball is by far the fastest growing team sport globally. So are super teams... Did the Dream Team hurt the Olympics? Did Mike Tyson hurt the heavyweight division? Well, literally, yes. But did he hurt the sport's popularity? No. Did the 98 Yankees
Boxing's
hurt
different.
Baseball? Excuse me, I thought this was my time. Did the 98 Yankees hurt baseball when they won 125 games and swept the World Series? No. Dominance sells. Now, let's get on to, you're seeing something extraordinary. People want to be inspired that way. Let's get on to competition. Bird versus Magic. My opponent, Stephen A. Smith, just lauded that. But what's KD versus LeBron? Both on great teams. The problem seems to be when the player takes his fate into his own hands and makes his own choice instead of a GM just making a trade for him. If back in the day Jerry West would have had a super team and traded for Kevin Durant, no problem, as he did acquiring James Worthy and others, for example. But somehow when the player does it, people like Stephen A. Smith, who apparently, pro team, pro management, don't like it as much. And finally, Jordan's greatness becoming the impetus for these players to want to market themselves, certainly that furthered the situation. But David Stern, right from the beginning, marketed Bird versus Magic, marketed Dr. J. David Stern was all about marketing the individuals, the players. The NFL was about the shield, the brand, the back of the jersey, the team name. The NBA has always been about the individuals. It's always been a team sport in which individuals could clearly shine and connect with the public. Has that been amplified, magnified since Michael Jordan, the greatest athlete in the history of American team sports? Yeah, sure. But he didn't invent it. He didn't create it. And we'd still be where we are today, even without him, in the sense that great players would want to win championships.
First of all, there he goes again. You're talking about sports. I've covered it for 24 years as a reporter for the New York Daily News, for the Philadelphia Inquirer, for CNN, for Fox, and then ultimately for ESPN, where I've been since 2003. I have a track record that shows that I've always been pro player, not necessarily pro management. So factually, you're incorrect, but there's nothing new there. Secondly, and more importantly, we need to point out this reality. When we're talking about super teams, you act like, oh my goodness, I'm lamenting the fact that there's a super team that exists. I'm lamenting the fact that a guy by the name of Kevin Durant was up 3-1 in the conference finals, loses to that team, and then goes to them a month later. There's something that smells about that. That never happened with Magic. It never happened with Bird. It never happened with Isaiah. It never happened with Dr. J. It never happened with Elijah Wan. It never happened with Jordan. It never happened with these great players throughout NBA history. When you talk about LeBron James, he was in Cleveland. He went to a Miami team that was 47-35, lost in the first round. By the way, Chris Bosh was in Toronto. And even though Chris Bosh can ball, when you talk about a big three, they were in a little bit of trouble against the Indiana Pacers. There were other teams that could sit up there, and Dallas beat them. Let's remember that.
Yeah, your time is
Listen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know Kevin Durant made that decision, and maybe that means he's not going to go down in history with Bird and Magic. However, that's actually a nod to LeBron James, speaking of Michael Jordan. LeBron James is so great that even on a 73-win team, they couldn't get over the hump. And even the other guy who lost to that 73-win team, in spite of being up 3-1, looks at LeBron, if he has a crew with him, and says, we need more. Maybe if we join forces, we can overcome this Michael Jordan of this era. That's really what's happening there. And why does KD have to do it? Well, as I said, maybe you can look at it as a character deficiency in some way compared to the Magic Johnsons of the world. But you know what? Magic Johnson was born into an NBA career with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar already on the team and a great coach, and great coaches, as it turns out. Larry Bird gets to the NBA, Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson, and a great organization. Now, Westbrook is a beast, and yes, they underachieved, but those weren't the Showtime Lakers or the Celtics. When Dr. J needed help, his GM went out and got him Moses Malone, who was just about as good as Bird or Magic or Kareem or anyone, and they won a championship. KD looks around saying, we can't get it done, can't beat them, join them.
Wait, sir. Now we gotta hear from Stephen, or is it the next question? Or are we doing?
We need to move on to the next subject here. Yes, and then I'd like to get.
I think I've spewed enough facts. It's no worry about it. We all know who.
I'd like to get your thoughts also once we move on to this next subject of where you think we are, Mr. President. Thank you.
Definitely.
Moving on, as he's exiting his second term as president of the United States, Barack Obama made his predictions for the NBA Finals, saying on Sirius XM Sway in the morning that he's picking the Warriors to win it all because Kevin Durant gives them more firepower. Max?
Yep.
Will President Obama's prediction of the Warriors winning it all be correct?
Well, the president's a very wise man, and he's going with the odds here. It's never a bad idea to take a super team that just won 73 games and upgraded to Kevin Durant. Remember, they lost in Game 7 to the Cavs, and they had this greatest half-court offense of all time that couldn't score in the last, 4 minutes of the game. 4 minutes plus. That's how the Cavs squeaked by. Now you essentially turn Harrison Barnes into Kevin Durant. That should get you over the hump. That said, look, when you integrate a huge new piece into a team, and that changes the dynamic of the team. We see this when super teams come together, for example, in Miami. You can't underrate chemistry. In the case of Miami, it took them a year. They should have beaten Dallas. It took them a year to really get it all together and to figure out what roles were, whose roles were what. And actually, LeBron was the alpha, and Wade had to defer a little bit. And when they got all that together, they won the following year. And some people are wondering, could that be the case with the Warriors this year? I don't think so. I don't think this is an issue of figuring out whose team it's going to be. I think it's an issue of just playing together a little bit, figuring out who likes the ball, where and why, and getting to know each other. And yes, integrating this huge Kevin Durant piece into the puzzle. But they have a long season to do it. It's not like he's a mid-season acquisition. And by the time it's all said and done, I expect the Warriors, they're not going to win 73 games again. You have to be going for that record. You have to get a little lucky. But they're going to win the West. They're going to come out of the West, yes, with a chip on their shoulder against the Cavs, who beat them last year. And with Kevin Durant, even though they're a little soft in the middle now because they've lost their bigs, with Kevin Durant, they will be improved enough to beat the Cavs in the finals this year.
Well, first of all, I want to applaud the President of the United States for stepping out on a limb. That's really big of him. I mean, to pick the Golden State Warriors, I mean, wow, what a risky proposition that was. Having said all of that, let's say this. While the Warriors should definitively be favorites because of the firepower that they've acquired in Kevin Durant, it's not a foregone conclusion that this team is going to win the NBA championship. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not a team to be ignored. Why are they not a team to be ignored? Because LeBron James, if there's an Achilles heel that the great Kevin Durant has, it would be that. If there's an Achilles heel that potentially Klay Thompson or Steph Curry may have, it might be Kyrie Irving. Now, when you look at that from an offensive perspective, clearly they have the firepower. Defensively is where things get interesting, which is why I think that even though the Golden State Warriors should be the favorite, it's not a foregone conclusion. They're ranked 23rd defensively thus far this season. They are 5-2. They've got 2 losses. Got blown out on opening night by the San Antonio Spurs. They lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. It was the second night of a back-to-back. They're going up against the Los Angeles Lakers. Probably took that game for granted, but they still lost by 20. In the end, what it comes down to is that when the guy in the middle is no longer Andrew Bogut and it's some dude named Jaja. His last name is Pajulia, but forgive me for focusing on the Jaja part, because when I hear Jaja, I think about Gabor from the old days. I don't think about Jaja Pajulia. That's not the dude I want in the middle for me. I'm thinking about the vulnerability that you have defensively, because you didn't lose just one. You lost 2 key components from last year's squad in Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut defensively. One could guard multiple positions. The other could man the front line from a rebounding and block shocking perspective. If you're going up against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, it is not a foregone conclusion that that is something that you're going to be able to overcome. We know that Golden State can score in buckets against anybody. The question is, who are they going to be able to stop? In order to definitively know that, we've got to look at Steve Kerr, who struggled in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. We got to look throughout the NBA Finals with Klay and Klay and Steph, who struggled guarding Kyrie, who, by the way, averaged 27 in the NBA Finals. These are not things that could be ignored. I'm not ignoring it, and that's why, even though I respect the Golden State Warriors, I'm saying look out for Cleveland. It's not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, they're a little bit soft in the middle. They miss Bogut. Not just Bogut, but Festus Ezeli. In fact, I think Festus Ezeli and Maurice Spates are bigger losses than Harrison Barnes.
That's
because
right.
After all, you've got a 7-footer now playing for Barnes. He's just not a defensive stopper in the paint.
Keep coming.
However,
appreciate it.
What we're really talking about here is a trade deadline acquisition kind of guy who can hold it down in the paint for 18 or 20 minutes a game. Those guys will be available if JaVale McGee doesn't develop into those guys will be available on the trade deadline, and that's not such a huge piece to integrate over the rest of the season that he can't be effective helping them come playoff time. Now, that's one. 2, after 20-something games, it's been established, we already know what the playoff seeding is going to be. So sometime in the next 20-odd games, they're going to get this together, the Golden State Warriors. And I will remind you that the death lineup, the most unstoppable force the NBA's ever seen, now you swap out Barnes, that's Steph, that's Klay, Iguodala, KD. And, of course, Draymond. And defensively, that's also a very good
Max?
squad.
I'd like to add that he pointed out what's going to happen during the trading deadline. What are we supposed to call him, Mr. Cleo now? You certainly know the future. We don't know what Golden State's going
Mr.
to be able to
Smith.
acquire. We have no clue.
Please, the commentary.
That should come out of his next argument.
Let's leave it there for now and check in on who's winning the debate according to your Twitter votes. Still, 51% are with Stephen A. The tight race continues. Jay Farrow, who do you believe has the edge right now? Who do you think is connecting with the American people?
Well, I believe they're both making very valid points. When we're talking about super teams, I mean, we can even talk about movies. You can talk about Space Jam, how, that team got put together. As far as super teams go, sir, I truly believe that as long as you get on a team when you're winning the championship, it's dope. Now, rebuilding with a team and actually having that, I brought this team up and we actually did it. We melded together and we did it. That's dope. But you can do that with a super team. It's just all about the rebuilding and everything. So I believe you had that point.
So you believe in riding coattails?
No.
Sound like that to me.
I don't believe in riding coattails. I just believe if you put the best together and you can win one, why not do it?
However they come together, they come together.
That's how I feel about that.
Enjoy the ride.
That's how I feel about that one, as far as that goes.
I was thinking Space Jam, too.
This is Larry Culpepper, inventor of the college football playoff. Goes without saying that I know about a good idea or two when it comes to college football. And the best idea out there is to subscribe to the Championship Drive podcast in the Listen tab of your ESPN app.
Welcome back to First Take Decision 16, where we're allowing you, the American people, to select the winner of our debate. All you have to do to vote is head over to Twitter and tweet hashtag Kellerman or hashtag Stephen A. Next, very serious issue we have here for the American people to address. Yes. Many will be concerned. Marijuana is one of the largest reasons for NFL suspensions in recent years. And today, 9 states will be voting whether or not to ease marijuana restrictions. 20 states have already decriminalized its use, which accounts for the homes of 15 of 32 NFL teams. Should marijuana be removed from the list of banned substances in the NFL? Max?
Of course it should. And this is a no-brainer. Do we really have to debate this? First of all, so you know, the reason that there is a continuing prohibition against marijuana in this country and not alcohol, for example, where the prohibition was lifted, is because there was a racist, xenophobic drug czar in the 1930s named Harry S. Anslinger who invented fake science to make false claims about marijuana. There is zero science supporting the idea that if the threshold is alcohol, if that's legal, that marijuana should be illegal. None. Every study yields the same result. They're about as bad for you. If one is worse, it's alcohol on a personal level. On a societal level, it's not close. It's alcohol is worse for you by a light year. Now, what's interesting about the NFL is they're in bed with companies that peddle alcohol. If it's family entertainment, but if you turn on, during the commercial, there they are selling alcoholic beverages and sanctioning against marijuana, which is not as bad for you. Do you know in the history of this country, there have been 0 documented cases of death from overdose on cannabis, but there have been 6 deaths, overdoses on alcohol per day, let alone drunk driving and alcoholism generally and what it does to the body and liver, et cetera.
Excellent
and yet
point.
The NFL has no problem with alcohol. That's the threshold. But you sanction against marijuana, particularly in a sport that essentially prescribes painkillers, opiates, far worse drugs to cope with the physically brutal game and its effects. It's okay to do those drugs. There are lawsuits about those drugs, but not use marijuana. Now, if it's not legal, it's not legal, but you don't have to choose to test for it. And then you don't have to choose to enforce draconian rules and sanctions against it. This is a cut and dried issue. I fail to see any argument on the other side of this issue, and yet my venerable, or shall I say vulnerable, colleague Stephen A. Smith, I'm sure, will try to make the case.
And let me add, Max Kellerman's been very consistent with this issue.
Yes.
Congratulations to the moderators. It's the first time I've ever heard a moderator with an opinion. That usually doesn't happen in presidential debate.
Please stick to the issue.
Congratulations. I am sticking to the issue. That is an issue. Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. This is an atrocity. My opponent's position is shameful. He is a man that proudly echoes to the world that he is a wonderful father, that he cares about his children, yet he is sitting up here and making the argument that because alcohol is something that is supported and other various drugs, that somehow, some way, the justification of marijuana should be something that's in vogue. That's not the question here. As far as I'm concerned, get rid of all of it if you want to. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. But speaking specifically as it pertains to the issue of marijuana, there is no question that it should be tested. Could you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if folks were allowed to do weed whenever they wanted to without being punished for it? Could you imagine how many dudes would be literally high showing up to work? I mean, let's put that in its proper perspective.
Wait.
No,
Please say that one more time.
High. All right. Zooted. You know, in another world. I've seen it as a reporter. I've watched a couple of dudes walk by me on press row. High. That's just that. You can't tell me that you're going to be in peak condition to perform the duty at hand. That's the bottom line. And when we look at it, we also talk about how it being a drug that could facilitate or provoke your use of other drugs. Now, clearly there are things that could be deemed more harmful than marijuana, and certainly those things need to be addressed. And I have no problem with my opponent advocating that why test for marijuana if you're not going to test for the other things, get rid of the other things. I applaud that. I don't have a problem with it. But as it specifically pertains to the issue of marijuana, you're basically endorsing dudes showing up to work high. And I'm sorry, I've seen it. I've seen it on many, many occasions. And let's also get into the issue of the NFL being a private sector. It's about your rules and regulations.
On your rebuttal.
Sure.
Look, as usual, my esteemed opponent is using misdirection and changing of the question here. I never said it's good for or players should show up high. And why would you logically take it there? Sure, some will, some do now. Some show up drunk now. Alcohol is legal. Is anyone sitting around going, you know what the problem with alcohol being legal in the NFL is? The problem is guys are going to show up drunk. No, if you do that, you have a problem with alcohol or marijuana or whatever it is you're showing up on that you shouldn't be on. There's no correlation between not testing and then enforcing draconian prohibitions against marijuana and guys showing up high. Of course that's not an issue. And just like it's not an issue for them to show up drunk. And in terms of marijuana being a gateway drug, what a bunch of nonsense. You know what the ultimate gateway drug to crack is? Oxygen. Because 100% of the people on crack started with oxygen. It's just total nonsense.
That makes no sense. I don't understand what the hell you just said.
It makes the exact same sense as saying marijuana is a gateway drug any more than alcohol
Excuse me, one second before we move on. When you said, Stephen A., you said get rid of all of it. Were you advocating to also test for alcohol?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. What I'm saying is if you're making the argument that marijuana should be in existence because other drugs are, alcohol is fine. I'm like, I don't care. The point is that if there is anything that could potentially impede your ability to perform your task at a peak level, it is perfectly within the right of a governing sanctioning body to police that.
Should they test to make sure you're not changing diapers in the middle of the night? Because that'll affect your performance.
Really,
that's utter nonsense.
That's where we're going. That's a nonsensical opinion. More importantly, it's amoral for an individual who literally bloviates about how much of a proud daddy he is. Is that what you want to give to our kids?
Leave the word you're looking for is immoral, and no, it's not immoral, nor is it amoral. It's, in fact, a moral and rational position to take.
Really?
We are a nation of laws, and the presumption is that there's a rational basis for our laws. If the threshold is alcohol, then marijuana should not be tested.
We're also a nation of laws in a country that is a capitalistic society where you have the private sector and they have the right, if they so choose, to test you for whatever they deem harmful to their product or their brand, which is what the NFL is doing.
Stephen A.
And they have every right to do it.
For a sober world.
Yes, that's what he's doing. So am I correct to say that you're saying that as long as a person can perform, they can do whatever they would like to? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You're not saying that.
In fact, if the person doesn't perform, they'll be cut from the team.
Right.
That prohibition, that sanction is already in place. If you can't do your job, you don't have the job, right? What does testing for marijuana do other than reinforce a hypocritical policy that the NFL helps to support?
Okay.
Jay,
We have to move on to the next
I
topic.
think the polls might swing after this in favor of
Hypocritical
Max.
is entirely different
will.
than wrong. Nobody's arguing that the NFL is not hypocritical. What we're saying is they're not wrong for testing it. They should just test for more stuff. It's not like they should eradicate testing for drugs that could potentially
Mr.
impair your
Smith.
ability
Should
to
they
perform.
continue to prescribe painkillers that are worse than marijuana?
Gentlemen,
We have to move
we
on.
have to move on.
We have to.
Please respect the time. Colin Kaepernick has stolen many headlines this NFL season for protesting on the field during the national anthem before games. His actions have caused quite a commotion, as many say his refusal to stand is disrespectful to those who fight for America's freedoms. We are now into Week 10 in the NFL, and it's the second week of the NFL Salute to Service Month. Mr. Smith, should Colin Kaepernick stop protesting?
In terms of kneeling for the flag, yes, I think it's time. He did it. He should be applauded for what he did. Nobody has a problem with that. He wasn't being disrespectful towards our military servicemen and women. He made that an emphatic point of his. He was speaking to the issue of racial injustice that exists within this country. His point has been made. Since that time, an abundance of individuals throughout this nation have followed suit, and now they have worked and are continuing to work to do something about it. What he initially said was that I'm going to keep doing this until we address the changes that need to be made. We address the hypocrisy that sifts through our society like a virus. These are the kind of things that have been happening. We've seen it in the NBA. We've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it in professional sports throughout this nation and in some cases internationally. There's been a level of attention, the microscopic eye of the world that's been placed on it because of the issue he's generated in regards to this matter. My issue is clear. At some point in time, you have to graduate to a point where you really, really start doing something about it other than kneeling and bringing attention to it. I don't have a problem with his position. I don't have a problem with his belief. What I'm saying is that you kneeled, you got the attention for it. We get it. We understand it. And there are others that are doing something about it. And I have no doubt he's doing something about it. What I'm speaking about specifically is whether or not kneeling any longer is accomplishing anything. And I'm saying we've graduated to the point where that is going to accomplish anything further. Now it's about what we're specifically going to do moving forward. And I think that's where our focus should lie right now, as opposed to just saying, there goes Colin Kaepernick again, kneeling for our national anthem. Now it's time to do more, and he's provoked it, so I'm not pointing the finger at him in any way. He's done the right thing. Now it's up to the rest of us to take this a step further and start doing things, and mainly voting today.
Amen on voting today.
Be careful with this one.
I hear this argument a lot about Kaepernick. He started the conversation. Now it's time to do something about it. Oh. I think that's a false kind of an argument. He is doing something about it. He's already pledged $1 million that go to the families of victims of police brutality and people who are affected in the communities by this issue. If that's not doing a lot about it as a percentage of his income even, that's a tremendous amount of money. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He's putting his time too. Let's look at the issue of him continuing the protest in this specific way. Here's why he can't stop now. First of all, he started a national conversation. That is true. You acknowledge that. And it was an important one to start. And the idea at first was, he didn't do it grandstanding, by the way. This was not like, look at what I'm doing, everyone. The cameras caught him, and the press turned it into an issue, and he didn't back down. He stuck to his guns. And people were wondering at first, wait a minute, are you anti-American? And his basic answer was, no, I am pro-American. But this country, America, is not living up to its ideals. So before I stand, I must kneel to exhort our country to live up to its ideals. He's actually appealing to our better angels. Why can't he stop now? Well, he's a backup quarterback at the time. And some of the questions and the discrediting of him was based around the idea that maybe he's just bringing attention to himself because he's not a star anymore. He's not starting anymore, and he's not used to this, and he needs some kind of attention to bring himself attention. Well, guess what? He's starting now. How would it look if Colin Kaepernick, as the backup, turns it into this issue, and now he's the starter, and now it's enough? He said at the time, when he was asked, when will you stop this? He said when he was nebulous, he was vague, when some kind of change has been made. At this point, he would have to be able to point to concrete examples that satisfy his original premise, that he has to affect change, not just having a national conversation, but actual change. I don't know that he can do that yet, and I don't think he can stop doing what he's doing until he can.
Well, first of all, a couple of things that need to be mentioned. Let's be clear. I didn't condemn anything that Colin Kaepernick did, nor did I say he did not do anything.
And I did not mean to suggest that. No, you haven't.
All right. So that's number one. Number two, and more importantly, I do think that it's important to point out that there's one African-American standing up at this debate, at this debate desk, where we're talking about racial prejudices and injustices that have been exacted against our populace in this country. And so when Colin Kaepernick speaks about that, he speaks about driving while black. He speaks about being profiled. He speaks about a bevy of things that have happened to African Americans that I think it's safe to say haven't happened to too many other people in this nation. I definitely think that that's something that needs to be brought up. Let's understand something. At the end of the day, however, you have to move forward, and you have to show people that, OK, here we are. Now, where are we going? Because if you don't do that, then it just comes across as noise. You get summarily dismissed. People give you lip service. A 7th Streeter who wanted to sing the national anthem at the Philadelphia 76ers and then was denied the opportunity to do so. So they turned around after public pressure, and now they're going to allow her to do such a thing. But ultimately, beyond that, where is it going to get you if it's just about lip service? Those are the kind of things that we have to pay attention to. It's about what the end goal is, not just about the moment.
Well, without bringing up race and suggesting that somehow, due to that, one or the other will be more sensitive to the issue, I will simply stand by my track record, both in supporting Colin Kaepernick and the idea that the past in this country, the history of our country, with the enormity of the racial injustice, continues to reverberate today, and that both policies and the behavior of people, including African Americans in positions of power, should reflect the ongoing struggle to balance scales that have not been balanced. I will simply stand by my track record on that issue.
Well, I'm not questioning his track record on that issue. In fairness to my opponent here, he definitely has been sensitive, and he shows an incredible level of sensitivity to those issues. At the same time, because he is not black, there's a level of identity that he may not have with a particular issue, and somebody else might have it more than him.
Yes, and somebody might have it less.
Let's leave it there now. And Jay-Z's here with me. You know what it's like being an African-American, driving while black, and being married. Obviously, you're the lovely husband of Beyonce. So I want to get the Twitter vote right now. The polls, they have swung in favor of Max. That was right after the marijuana conversation. No surprise.
Yeah, of
with
course.
That right
The marijuana bump.
Yeah, of course. When you start talking about that, of course it's going to switch over because, half of Twitter, well, most of them are weed heads. They have nothing else to do but commentate on other people's situations because they're not, whatever. So, your question, love.
What are you thinking of where they're standing so far on the Colin
Well,
Kaepernick?
yeah, as far as the Colin Kaepernick thing, I mean, I feel like he did make, a big statement, and of course now, there is definitely more people who are being proactive and who are actually taking action. But like you said, Stephen A. Smith, you said, it needs to go a certain way. Things need to be done. Let me be perfectly clear. You said things need to happen. You said if it's going to start, it doesn't need to continue. He made a statement and what he needs to do is keep not going, but now do something extra. Not be at the place. Not sit down. I'm not talking about being there and sitting there and just, doing this. That's over. That's what I'm saying. That's over. Now what we're doing is let's take it to the next step because we have people out here who go through these injustices. We have people out here who are getting shot every day. We have people out here who are losing their lives. We have mothers who are not having their sons come back. Oh, that's what's happening. So what we need to do is we need to be proactive. That's all.
Welcome back. You are watching First Take, Decision 16, where we are allowing you, the American people, to select the winner of our debate. Remember, to vote, all you have to do is head over to Twitter and tweet hashtag Stephen A. or hashtag Kellerman currently. Kellerman is leading the polls. Many big-name athletes have taken a public interest in politics this year. For instance, LeBron James and Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton, but we are going to discuss the Cowboys at this moment. Since 1979, they have been considered America's team. According to Forbes, Dallas is the most valuable team in the NFL at $4 billion. Rookie Ezekiel Elliott has the top-selling jersey at the moment. And the last season, the 3 highest-rated regular season games in the NFL were Cowboys games in which the season finished 4-12. If the Cowboys aren't America's team, Stephen A., who should be?
That's an easy one. It's the New England Patriots. First of all, think about it. If you are an American citizen, all right, and you love this country, isn't the word patriot synonymous with that level of loyalty and that patriotism? That's number one. Number two, I thought America was the greatest country on the planet Earth, on God's green earth. We're talking about a team that's been to 6 Super Bowls. We're talking about a quarterback that's a 4-time Super Bowl champion. We're talking about an individual in Tom Brady who may very well go down as the greatest quarterback of this generation, if not NFL history. My opponent here is on the record specifically stating on many, many occasions, more so than I could ever hope to count, that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach. A matter of fact, I recall, I don't know whether it was Jay-Z, President Obama, myself, Stephen B. Smith, whomever, but I recall this individual right in front of me asking Max Kellerman, did you just say that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach ever? Just a few minutes ago. And so if you got the greatest coach, and you got the greatest quarterback, and you got the greatest record, and you got the Super Bowl titles, what's there to talk about? Do you understand that since the year 2002, the New England Patriots have not won less than 10 games in a season? Since 2002. That's spanning 14 years. They have not won less than 10 games in a season. By the way, that was only twice. They're usually winning 11 or more. This is what they do. 13-3, 12-4, a couple of 14-2 seasons in the mix. They win. And so when you look at that and them being a model of consistency and a model of greatness, and every single year they're in the discussion as potential title contenders, so much so that even when Brady has to sit down for 4 games because of his suspension due to Deflategate, some dude named Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett guided them to a 3-1 record. So much so that my opponent was on the record saying that the greatest quarterback of this generation, Tom Brady, doesn't even deserve MVP. Because his subs could come in and win.
Please let Max answer the question.
I assumed
please.
that Stephen A. would take the Patriots because, first of all, much the way Tex Schramm, a PR salesman, essentially, a PR guy, sold America on the Cowboys being America's team, Stephen A. got taken in by the name, the Patriots.
I thought that record did.
You know, if I ever have an expansion team, if I'm the owner, I'm going to call it America's team because people will be taken in by that. Now, the Patriots are undeniably the class of the NFL over the last couple of decades, yes. But before that, they were a kind of generic organization. And really, when you look at the Patriots' success, it's all about Bill Belichick. I mean, you bring up the record, Stephen A. Smith, the double-digit wins every year since Belichick got there. One of those years, Brady didn't play. Matt Castle won 11 games. They didn't go to the playoffs, but Matt Castle won 11 games. And in Brady's absence, they went 3-1 this year. So do the math. We're up to 14 and what? 6? You know, without Brady, he's still really, really good, Belichick. So he's the GM. He's the coach. He's responsible for this Patriots dynasty stretching now 15 years plus. But when you talk about the history of the NFL, who's America's team? The answer is actually the Green Bay Packers. That's who it should be. The Green Bay Packers, in the Lombardi era, the coach that Belichick supplanted as the greatest ever, won 5 championships in 7 years. The problem for them is 3 of them came in the pre-Super Bowl era, so they only got credit for 2 in the Super Bowl era. But since then, Bart Starr, 2-time Super Bowl MVP. Brett Favre, who was never the greatest quarterback of all time, but a top 10 quarterback and an America's quarterback. Everyone loved Brett Favre. He's out there drawing up plays in the dirt and having fun and all that. He was this country's quarterback. Since then, Aaron Rodgers, until very recently, the best player in the NFL. And they continue, unlike the Cowboys, to win championships every now and then. So, yes, if you have a recency bias and you're slave to the moment, you are just caught up in what, over the last 15 years, it's the Patriots. But when you look at the history of the NFL, the answer should be the Packers.
Excuse me, Stephen A. Many Americans believe that the New England Patriots outside of the New England area are cheaters. Mm-hmm. Do you believe a cheating franchise...
Sorry, didn't mean to say that so loud.
It's okay. Should represent America's team?
Well, that's their opinion. The fact of the matter is the New England Patriots were still allowed to perform the very year that Spygate took place. It took place and they got busted in game 1 of the season. That was the year they went 16-0. Did they cheat the other 15 games that they won? Did they cheat in that playoff game, the divisional playoff game, that AFC Championship game that they won?
Listen, we're not aware of how many. Hold on. Wait.
That same game, that same season, nobody was talking about them cheating when the Giants beat them in the Super Bowl. So if you weren't talking about them when you were talking about them when they're cheating, how come nobody brought that up when they lost? It was only when they won. That's number one. By the way, Tom Brady is 176-51 as a quarterback. Bill Belichick's record is 230-114 overall, 194-70 as the head coach for the New England Patriots. And my opponent here is on the record saying that Tom Brady is going to fall off of a cliff.
Yes.
Within 14 months from now. Within 14 months from now. But it didn't stop him. But it did not stop him from recognizing Tom Brady as the great quarterback that he is. He says he's the greatest of the generation, maybe the greatest ever. And he talked about Bill Belichick. So if they're so great, then how come you didn't bring up cheating then?
Okay, once again, that's not what we're really talking about.
That is what we're talking about.
Should be America's team, and you both bring up a fantastic point. In addition to everything else, they've been sanctioned twice in recent years by the league, the Patriots have, for cheating. And, it's not exactly like what an American politician would tell people, if folks follow the rules and all this stuff. But in the NFL, it's at least don't get caught breaking the rules, and they've been caught twice. You know what that's like? It's like if you see a cockroach, they're like 100 behind the walls. You get caught cheating twice? What does that mean about your program?
Listen, I got to say this. Can I say this? I know you went over. I know we're doing this two thing, but I got to say this, honest to God. And I'll say it like Chris. You can even say it like Chris. Who knows how long the balls have been deflated? Who knows, Steven? You're talking about all these records and everything, but seriously, how long do you know?
I'd like to answer that question.
Go ahead, please.
You brought that up because I've had conversations with Chris Rock about this very subject.
I don't think you have.
Yes, I have.
You have. He's a dear friend of yours.
He actually is.
Okay.
Just like you are.
All right.
We share the same birthday.
We do.
From time to
we're
time.
friends.
All right, so we're not lying.
I thought I'd be able to make a point, but we have to go over Stephen A's birthday.
By the way, go ahead.
Look, in addition to everything else, I just want to say about the Packers who get the short shrift. They're from the smallest market in this country. They represent small-town middle America better than anyone else. They continue to be good year in and year out.
But not great.
But their history is great, and they're the only team owned by
not
the
their
fans.
Recent history.
Fans own shares of the team.
And they're not satisfied.
Who should be America's team is the Green Bay Packers, who also have a rabid fan base.
By the way,
they might also be missing overinflated footballs.
He brought up Chris Rock and what would Chris Rock would say or what Chris Rock would ask. Chris Rock said, hey, isn't that the same season that the New England Patriots beat the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl? Did anybody take that Super Bowl back? No. It's an irrelevant discussion.
Do you have the same birthday as anyone on the Patriots you want to talk about now?
No.
Gentlemen. Welcome back to First Take Decision 16, where we're allowing you, the American people, to select the winner of our debate. Remember, to vote, all you have to do is head to Twitter and tweet #Stephen A, #Kellerman. Our next issue at hand. Many big-name athletes have taken a public interest in politics this year. For instance, LeBron James spoke at Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton's rally in Cleveland this weekend. There are many athletes over the years that have turned from sports to politics, like Kevin Johnson, Lynn Swann, and Bill Bradley, just to name a few. Mr. Kellerman, which current athlete should run for president of the United States?
This answer is so obvious, people might roll their eyes and be like, oh, I knew you were going there. But you just saw him, LeBron James. LeBron James came into the NBA with such expectations, it was ridiculous. In the social media era, essentially, for most of it, with all eyes on him, and somehow exceeded expectations. And had his ups and downs early, yes, and didn't always know how to handle the pressure perfectly. But that kind of pressure-tested past actually makes him more qualified to be president. And what has he done? He has shown real leadership qualities, not just on the court with his team and in the locker room, but with the press and even on social issues. You know, it's easy, as President Obama sometimes says, it's hard to prove a counterfactual. What that means is to look at a world that where someone didn't exist, where they didn't do what they did, and imagine what it would be then. So it's easy to say now, well, LeBron lives in an era where it's okay to protest, different than it was 20 or 30 years ago, and so that gives him the opportunity to do it, and it makes things feel more progressive to people because the era in which LeBron James is living is allowing for it. But I ask you to imagine a world where the best player in the NBA didn't handle the pressure the way he did, didn't win all the championships the way he did, deal with the media, his teammates, bring everyone along with him. I ask you to imagine that world where that guy also doesn't put his name on important social issues and doesn't lead by example. He's a guy whose talent could have easily isolated him from everybody else, but instead he used his talent to uplift people around him. He has excellent leadership abilities, not just natural abilities, but also learned abilities. LeBron James for president.
You know what? That's a good point. You know what I mean? Anybody that reminds me of Omac from Legends of the Hidden Temple, that head that he got is humongous. I think he's got a lot of knowledge in there. And yes, you know what? I shouldn't be agreeing with you, but I'm taking your point, sir. I see what you're saying. Mr. Stephen A. Smith.
Max Kellerman, for a brief moment, is right about the laudables he's extolled upon LeBron James. He's wrong about him being the president, being the ideal candidate. And I'll tell you why. Because, in a sense, LeBron James is a lot like our great President Barack Obama. Good man, role model, very popular amongst the masses, but unfortunately hindered from getting a lot of things that he wanted done because you have a bunch of obstructionists who were standing in the way, at least in the eyes of millions of progressives and liberals out there in this country. So if you want a president who will go to any means necessary to get things done, I got the perfect candidate for you. Draymond Green. That's who I would pick. And I'm serious. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you talk about Draymond Green, you're talking about a dude that's willing to put in the dirty work. That ain't about making friends. And he clearly will do whatever it takes to get the job done. He will sit up there and he will work both sides of the aisle. He'll hit you in the back. He'll hit you in the front. He'll hit you low. He'll hit you high. It doesn't matter. Whatever it takes, he will do it. Now, who does he have something in common with? If you look throughout your history, and the one thing I know you know about my opponent here, Max Kellerman, I know he knows this, your history. Think about President Lyndon B. Johnson, 1964-65. We're talking about Civil Rights Acts. We're talking about the Voting Rights Act. If you look into his history, what was he known as doing? Working the back rooms, doing whatever it took to make sure policy was pushed forth, whatever it took. He wasn't interested in making friends. He wasn't interested in being a populist. He wasn't interested in being somebody that everybody smiled for and asked you to hug and kiss his babies. He was interested in making America better. And what he did was he got guys in the back room, and whatever he knew about him, he let them know he knew about him. And he said, excuse me, you're going to flow with me or else. That's how you get things done, unfortunately, in the world of politics today. And if there's somebody that epitomizes that, it would be Draymond Green. LeBron would be more of a choir boy.
Let me give credit where credit's due. That is a brilliant analogy. Brilliant analogy. And Lyndon B. Johnson is very interesting, too. I think Draymond Green is kind of more of a maniac. And I don't think in this country you can have an unqualified, crazy maniac run for the presidency. Never mind.
Okay, only thing I'm saying is with Draymond Green, if he would become the president of the United States of America, we got to do something about him always holding his mouth open. I don't know what's going to happen. Like a whole bunch of secrets about to fly out of his mouth because he never closes it. I look, every time I see him, I want the camera to pan down and see if there's like a pool of drool or something like that somebody's getting tried. That's all I'm saying about that situation. Great player, dear friend of mine.
I'm just saying. Somebody who's going to get it done and is not interested in a popularity. He's not going to be interested in a popularity contest. He's going to be interested in getting it done. That's what we need from our leaders. People
LeBron
who are
James
interested
is
in getting it
already
done.
the president of sports. You might as well just give it to him. He's the greatest athlete on the planet. He leads by example.
LeBron would
he
get
puts
nothing
himself
done as a
out there
politician.
on important issues.
He would get nothing done as a politician.
He would. Let me just show you.
As a politician.
He was in Cleveland, rotting away, no shot at a title. He gets nothing done. Won 2 championships in Miami.
You're
just
talking
won
basketball.
another one in Cleveland.
I'm talking politics. I'm saying politically, LeBron James would not get anything done.
Yes, he would.
He would
Yes,
not
he would.
Be,
Wait
he
a second.
would not be able to take those obstructions
Draymond
that would get
has
on
the
his
smile.
way.
Wait a second.
Draymond would find a way.
Wait a second. Draymond would find a way, but LeBron would get something done. He'd get that line all the way down here. He really would.
Well, he need to teach me how to do it, but that's a different subject for another day.
Listen, we understand. We understand that. We see the task
Making
ahead.
hairlines great again.
I'm almost 50, though. I'm almost 50, though. I got an excuse.
Is that why you're against LeBron? That's not fair.
I'm not against him. I support him.
If anything, you should be with him.
Listen, I love the guy. I'm just saying that in an obstructionist government,
cure receding hairlines?
He would not be able to get it done.
By the way, LeBron's hairline used to be back here. It's over here now. What do you mean get nothing done?
Okay.
We'll leave it there. Let's check in on the votes right now. And according to Twitter, 50-50. Tight race. Jay, which candidate did you like there?
You know what? They both had valid points, but I feel like I agree with the LeBron reference. I mean, as far as Draymond Green, I think he's a great player, but still, I need my president to look a little more presidential. I feel like LeBron has the makings of a president.
Too many people are interested in liking folks as opposed to voting for folks that are going to get things done. Competent folks that are going to get things done. Both these guys are competent, but it's about getting it done. It's not about a popularity contest.
College football lives here. North Carolina sits in first in the ACC Coastal and have their sights set on defending their title.
Across the 45, 50, 40, 35, dives to the cone, touchdown, 80-yard run, wow.
Up next, they head to Durham to face their fiercest rival Duke. Coverage begins Thursday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.
Native American sports nicknames and mascots have long been a cause for debate. Stanford and St. John's are examples of the many colleges that have changed from Native American nicknames and mascots. There are several pro teams that still feature Native American nicknames and logos. Coming under the most scrutiny has been the Washington Redskins because of the nature of Washington's nickname. Max, should the Redskins have to change their nickname?
Absolutely, and I don't even say the name, and I don't think you should either. I don't think Stephen A. should either. I don't think anyone should. I don't think ESPN or anyone or the NFL should refer to them by that name, and I think it's outrageous that still goes on. Now, everyone cites this study in the Washington Post. Of course, they cover the Washington franchise that said 90% of respondents who were Native American said it's not insulting to them. And everyone championed that idea. I won't even get into Jacqueline Keeler of The Nation's response to that. The 504 self-identified respondents across all 50 states, 56% weren't a part of a tribe, a Native American tribe that they could name, nor could they even name their ancestral tribe, all those kind of things. I won't even talk about that. Let me just make this point. Should you refer to a team by a name that you wouldn't go up to a member of that group, a Native American, and freely use that word to describe them? Would you really? Would you go up to a Native American person, someone who identified as Native American, particularly if they're aware of the tribe to which they belong, that's really a big part of their cultural identity, and refer to them as the name of that team? Because if the answer is no, we shouldn't be using that name at all.
Okay, so we're going to have to hear Stephen A. Smith's conversation. Please, sir.
Well, I certainly stand here today and incredibly sensitive to the Native American community. As far as I'm concerned, anything that's offensive to a people should be eradicated immediately. The problem is that the Native American community doesn't appear to be in unison in terms of that position. So for me, whether it's an African American, whether it's a Jewish American, whether it's a Catholic, a Protestant, it doesn't matter whom. If you are not a Native American, you have no place in this argument. The Native American community needs to decide definitively and universally what's offensive and what is not. As an African American in this nation, I happen to know that if you are not African American and you use the N-word to an African American, universally, we're going to find that offensive. I happen to have been told by numerous Jewish folks that there are certain things that universally they find offensive. Because the Native American community hasn't been universal in their disgust towards this name, now we have to take the other arguments into consideration. We have to take portions of the Native American community that don't find it offensive. We have to also buffer that with the fact that there are millions upon millions of Washington Redskins fans, who, by the way, is the third most profitable franchise in the NFL.
I want to respond to that.
And we got to go to that,
I want to respond to that. You're never going to find unanimity. If you're looking for unanimity, particularly,
I just told you where you find unanimity.
Particularly in a group that is made up of many different nations. It's not like there was one Native American nation. There were many different nations whose culture has been so decimated by U.S. policy. You're not going to find likely unanimity there. And furthermore, I don't think you have to. There was a time, whatever the original intention of the Washington franchise name, it may have been benign. But over time, culture redefines what words mean and what kind of importance is attached to them. Yes, and there was a time, for example, that the word colored referred to people of color, and that was the PC word. Over time, that changed. And if you continue to refer to someone that way, you should expect an offended reaction. There's a transitional period where it's not yet cut and dried, written in stone that there's 100% unanimity among the group, but that you can see the way it's going, and there's a large enough percentage of the group that's offended that you should stop using the term.
Well, again, whether you should or shouldn't is not something I'm disputing. If I was standing up here and saying that it's something that shouldn't be considered as in terms of change, that would be an entirely different argument. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you don't have unanimity on the side of the offended party, then who is an outside party to step in and make that decision on behalf of them? That's the issue here. When you consider the Redskins, who are worth over $2 billion, who have millions upon millions of fans, and you have literally studies where they and others swear that the Native American community doesn't find this offensive. I respect where you're coming from. I would not have any problem if their name was eradicated and it was changed. The issue in question is, do we, sitting apart and separate from the Native American community, have the right to step forward and say, we will make this decision on behalf of them. Washington Redskins, this is what you should do. Eliminate the name. I don't know if we have that right.
I won't use the name. Let me just say, I mentioned Jacqueline Keeler's article.
Sure.
She says she has 50 first cousins. They're all offended by it. She doesn't know about the 504 self-identified.
Who is she?
She's a writer for The Nation.
Okay.
Who 50 first cousins all offended. Let me just tell Jacqueline Keeler's cousins and all Native Americans offended by the name, because you're offended, I will not use that name, and I hope many of my colleagues, or all of them, follow suit soon. And I believe soon enough, not only will that happen, but that Dan Snyder will be at a podium apologizing.
Okay.
Jay-Z,
right.
Just to let you know, 51% are voting now currently for Max Kellerman. He's still leading the polls. Welcome back to First Take, Decision 16. The NFL has faced many issues this year, which have been blamed for the declining TV ratings. Some of the issues, including lack of discipline for domestic violence, anthem protests, poor officiating, poor play, concussions, and the league taking the fun out of the game. Max, what is the biggest issue facing the National Football League right now?
The league has so many issues, including domestic violence, of course, but I think the lasting issue, the one that's pushing it toward the margins of American society from squarely in the middle, is actually safety, especially concussions. And I know about this coming from the boxing industry. As we advance and hopefully civilize, full contact, combat, and brutal sports get pushed to the margins in favor of sports that are not as brutal and don't have the same lasting effects on the athletes, like the NBA, for example. You can point to the UFC and MMA and say, well, they're growing fast, except a funny thing happens. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in football and in boxing, where you're trying to keep the players on the field and you're trying to continue the fight, so if a guy gets knocked down, you get a standing 8, that actually leads to longer-term, worse consequences. In MMA, as soon as you have an advantage, it feels more brutal. You follow up, but it ends the fight. So it doesn't lead to the same kind of brain damage, etc. NFL football players have shorter lifespans, although that's been disputed by the NFL. Some claim the lifespans are shorter by up to 10 to 15 years. That's in dispute. What seems indisputable to me is the quality of their lives post-game is not what it would have otherwise been. I think the violence and the concussions are the number one problem.
Stephen A. Smith, please. Well, you finished, but save him, please.
First of all, my opponent is being a hypocrite, but nothing surprising in that regard, because he covers the sport of boxing. I believe concussions play a role in that, but it doesn't stop him from going to work every week. So let's be clear about that. Secondly, and more importantly, if you're thinking about it, let's be real about something. The concussion issues in a gladiator sport as irritating as it can be sometimes, is acceptable. What isn't acceptable is the level of control that the NFL exercises, because that has dissipated the sport's popularity to some degree. Every time you turn around, celebrations in the end zone squashed to some degree or neutralized. They've neutralized the kickoff return. You might as well start off at the 20-yard line half the time now, because they're talking about the danger of the game and how they've taken that fun play out of the equation for the most part. We also talk about the socks that you wear, the shoes that you wear, the way you wear your hairdo. If you got some pink color wrapped around it or whatever, you're trying to honor your mama in the case of a D'Angelo Williams. And suddenly the NFL wants to police everything. Those things are an impediment to the popularity of the sport.
My opponent has been on the record
as
saying the NFL is right that you can't have breast cancer awareness stuff on your uniform because that would be a slippery slope. You're on the record as having said that.
I don't understand.
Yes, you are. You're saying that the NFL should not allow players to put stuff on their uniforms, even for something like cancer. You made the slippery slope argument.
I'm saying to you that they're a bit excessive in everything that they police.
Well, but then you brought that up as an example of excessive control.
I'm just saying they nitpick everything.
I would say that, in fact, when you look at the domestic violence issue and the concussions issue, and even that issue, it's not so much an issue of control. They need more control. Like domestic violence, they lost control. They need to exercise better judgment in that control, and that's a big difference.
This is very important to say. In America, the National Football League is the most popular sport in this country at this particular juncture. Domestic violence is an incredibly serious issue that should definitely be taken seriously. There are over 1,600 players in the NFL. I am certainly not trying to diminish the importance of the subject, but let's be fair to those players out there who are wise enough, smart enough, decent enough, who have mothers, who have sisters, who have daughters, who have never put their hands on women and never would. That's a vast majority of NFL players. So when we say it's a problem, let's understand why it's a problem. It's because of how those few incidences that took place were dealt with, were conducted. It's not like there's an epidemic going on and every time you turn around there's a player that must be doing something to a female. No, it's the NFL and their unwillingness to address vehemently those who did violate, who were more amoral. Those are the individuals.
Yes, domestic violence permeating the entire country. We must move on to our next subject right now. Jerry Jones purchased the Dallas Cowboys for $140 million back in 1989. They're now worth $4 billion. The Cowboys have won 3 championships in his time as owner, but haven't won since the 1995 season. Things are looking up now as the team is off to a 7-1 start, which is the best record in the NFC. Stephen A. Is Jerry Jones the greatest owner in the National Football League?
I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but I promise the American people that I'm going to be a fair-minded individual. Yes, he is. Jerry Jones in 1989 purchased the Dallas Cowboys for $140 million. Today, they are worth $4 billion. This man is a marketing genius. He is an ultra salesman extraordinaire. He is one of the preeminent owners in all of sports. More importantly, as an owner, his primary responsibility is to make money for his franchise and for the league under which has purview over his franchise. And he has done both better than any owner, arguably in the history of this sport. Now, he doesn't need to be the GM.
Stephen A., you've been on the record saying this team is an accident waiting to happen.
Yes, they are.
But you still believe he's the greatest owner of the accident waiting to happen?
I was getting ready to get to that before I was so rudely interrupted. What I was trying to say was that Jerry Jones does not need to be a GM. He does not need to be a coach. He does not need to be a player personnel director. But as an owner who cuts the check,
here's the problem.
He generates funds.
Here's the problem.
That's the bottom line.
Jerry Jones inherited a Cowboy. I mean, he bought it, but what was already in place was this idea that they were America's team.
He took it to another level.
And that's what was being marketed. It was Tex Schramm's idea. Hey, America's team, and it worked. And that's what Jones inherited, if you will, when he took the team over. The appreciation you point to with the Cowboys happened with every team. It happened a little bit more with them.
Not to this degree.
Every team that was sold for $100-something million is now worth billion or multiple billions. The job of an owner is not just to make money. From the fans' point of view, it's to give them a great product. And Jerry Jones has not done that to the extent that Rooney has. If you look at the Rooney family, Dan Rooney and the entire family. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, actually the correct choice for out-of-market team to root for. The Steelers have not only won more Super Bowls than the Cowboys,
in recent
the
memory.
Rooney rule, which they then enforced on themselves to get Mike Tomlin, African-American coach, they are the team you can be proudest to get behind.
Stephen A?
Profound point on his part. But again, my definition of an owner is somebody that cuts the check. And if I recall, my opponent has agreed with me on many occasions when I've talked about George Steinbrenner being one of the greatest owners. It wasn't just because of the World Series championships. It was because of the money that he generated for the franchise and his willingness to go out there and spend no matter what. So my opponent here needs to make up his mind. 1 minute he's making that point, another minute he sided with me about the George Steinbrenners of the world. I think that Jerry Jones' primary responsibility is to generate dollars and interest for his franchise. That's what an owner is supposed to do, and no one has done it better.
Who can fire the GM? The owner. The owner can fire the GM. If Jerry Jones was the greatest owner, he would have fired himself as GM years ago.
According to my opponent, he essentially did just that because of Stephen Jones, his son. Max Kellerman has been on the record on numerous occasions.
He went over the time.
But you have
America, you saw what happened.
You have been on the record saying that his son has taken over the organization.
That's right. He has.
Yes.
But that's not because Jones fired himself.
I rest my case.
Stephen Jones rested control.
Jerry Jones had to step aside to allow his son to do that. I rest my case.
Okay, Canada.
I just dropped the mic.
Welcome back to First Take, Decision 16. It's been a very tight race, but the votes are in. And the title of King of Sports Debate goes to, would you like to walk over?
Yes.
By 51% of the vote, Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, I wanted to do the fake out. There you go.
Congratulations. Good job. And keep on debating. And keep on blacking and not cracking. You know what I mean? That's what I got to say.
I'd love to say that I'm not surprised. I'd love to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not.
He's dope.
Because we're talking about American politics. We're talking about leadership.
Yes.
We're talking about leading this country. And as our president said, it's not about yes, he will. It's about yes, we can. That's what this is about. You voted for me because right now that's what the moment demands.
He's salty.
I would like to say that I happen to know for a fact that there was election fraud today. It's come to my attention that people have voted multiple times. The same people have voted multiple times. I'd also like to point out that in spite of his 3 million Twitter followers, I brought it to within 1%.
Follow Max.
Which clearly means, at Max Kellerman, by the way.
Kellerman, you sound salty.
That's right. Which clearly means
sounds a bit salty.
that, in fact, I won the debate.
He tight.
In spite of all that, I would still like to say voter intimidation and voter fraud, both. He did everything.
He tight.
Sore losers.
He tight.
This is frightening. This really is. I mean, to think that this individual would sit up there and indicate that he's not willing to accept the decisions made by the American people.
Congratulations. Huge thank
No,
you.
I don't concede.
Excuse me to Jay Farrow for being here with us. In all seriousness, everybody go out and vote. It is election day.
Yes.
Your vote does count.
Go vote.
Yes.
Do it.
You're the best. Come back again.
Thank you.
We'll check you out on the AMA.
Yes,
Looking forward to that.
Great.
Congratulations, King of Sports Debate.
How dare you? I don't...
Ole Miss heads to College Station Saturday night to face Texas A&M.
Stiff arm, down he goes. Down he goes.
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.